We all face battles. We all carry scars. But the real question isn't what happened to us, it's what we do with what happened. We look to our heroes for inspiration. We follow their stories, their victories. But what if your story, your struggles, your pain could be more than just something you survive? What if it could be the lifeline that someone else is waiting for? This is a message that hit me hard, even as I was the one saying it while I was listening back to the clip that follows this from a episode I did on the radio on February 13th of 2020. And now I want to share that with you, and hopefully share the empathy and the feelings with you of this thing as well, and the strength and the power of it, as I prepare for the official launch of the EpicLife Podcast, which, thanks to all these unexpected detours, as you can hear in my voice still, has taken longer than I'd hoped. I want to bring you something special, a look back at a moment that still holds power today. Join me as I revisit this old broadcast. It's an episode I entitled simply Hero. It's not just about the heroes we follow, it's about the hero you can become. Stay tuned. This one's for you, and the journey to epic life is just getting started. Here comes that clip. Do you have heroes? Can you name your hero right now? I mean, some of us, if we're asked off the top of our heads, and we have to think about it, it might mean that we didn't really have one or haven't really established one in our heads. If I asked you, who's your hero? Maybe you'll come up with a politician. Maybe you'll come up with a sports player, or a movie celebrity, or a religious figure. You know, there are people who say, Gandhi is my hero, and even if we didn't know him. And somebody will say, Ronald Reagan is my hero, or Barack Obama. These were my heroes. Most of you who listen to me and have listened to me for a long time know that I have some pretty old entrenched heroes. One of my heroes was a fictional character off of television, Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, the good captain. I've got other heroes as well. I have a hero in history. Thomas Jefferson was one of my heroes. A hero doesn't mean necessarily that everything about their lives, whether they're fictional characters or non-fictional characters, real historical people, doesn't mean that you agree with everything in their life. Sometimes we gloss over things about their lives that we don't like, but there are certain things they have done or they have accomplished or that they stand for that make them our heroes. And so, who's your hero? Let me start off by asking, why are there so few heroes? Heroism isn't an easy thing. If you look out there and you say, who are the heroes? Are there heroes that you have? Are you a hero to someone else? There's a very pointed question you have to ask. Why are there so few heroes? It's a good question, and it deserves some good thought on our parts, especially given how much of our world is rife with poverty, famine, violence, natural disasters, tragic accidents. We need heroes more than ever. So where are they? Why do they seem to be in such short supply around us? Let's explore 4 different reasons. Number 1, to be a hero, you have to learn to be, get this, a deviant. Now, deviant is usually a negative word in society. Has been for a long time. You can think of deviance and the way it used to be defined and the way it's defined nowadays. There's a psychologist, Phil Zimbardo, and he uttered this line, and he's right. He said, heroism requires people to depart from their normal world, to cast aside conventional ways of behavior. Heroes aren't ordinary.
They're extraordinary. Examples of heroic deviance permeate our culture. Harry Potter was hardly a typical student at Hogwarts. Jesus of Nazareth was a countercultural rebel, if you will, who defied the prevailing order of things. Batman is hardly normal by any definition. Everyday people who become heroes display a willingness to behave freakishly. I think that that's a great way to define a hero. We don't think of them as being freakish, but when you delve below the surface of what makes a hero, they are freakish. They act differently than the rest of society. And that's what sets them apart. Number 2, heroes must often overcome psychological barriers. Oh my God, look at Batman. That dude is a messed up psychopath, but he's got control of it. Psychologists John Darley and Bib Latane studied the bystander effect, they called it, which refers to the failure of people to help in emergencies when others around them could potentially help. You see it all the time now in the news, where somebody's getting beaten by somebody, by a group of thugs, and everybody's standing around with their iPhones taking pictures of it. Oh, I gotta catch this so I can make a viral video on my YouTube. People stand around. The bystander effect. People tend to diffuse responsibility and assume that others should do the heroic work. It's a type of psychological laziness that's engendered simply by being in a large group or a society. Now, here's the hard truth of it. Being subject to psychological pressures or social forces that encourage inaction is no excuse for failing to help somebody who needs it. There are barriers to heroism that can be broken down when we summon the moral courage to do the right thing, even when it's hard to do the right thing. Are you the person who will stick your neck out? Will you defy the laws of society and be that freakish person who will say, put your goddamn phones away, I'm going to step out and help this guy? And you put yourself in harm's way. You put yourself in the fray. Now, many times, it doesn't have to be physical violence that you're fighting. It could be something, it could be bullying. It could be words. It could be actions and deeds of others. Do you stand up or do you sit back and kind of melt back into the bushes because everybody else is around and let somebody else do that? Do you know what makes heroes? The people who defy that. The people who step out. I tried to always in life, when I was a youth pastor, teach the kids in my youth group, stand up for the people that can't stand up for themselves. I think that is what makes a hero, when you take that kind of responsibility on yourself. These are qualities that heroes have. They will step out from the crowd. They will take the blows, whatever they may be, physical or metaphoric. And they will push for justice and doing the right thing. Number 3, heroism. It involves risk. It involves potential danger. Emergency situations offer all kinds of challenges to us. Darley and Latane, who I mentioned earlier, they have noted that emergencies have several qualities that make it surprising that any heroes emerge from them at all. First, emergencies are rare, they're unexpected, and this rarity means that emergencies can easily catch us off guard and leave us seemingly paralyzed. I don't want to be one of the crowd that might be caught up in the emergency. I would rather step up to the front and help control, to a certain extent, whatever emergency is hitting us. Do you do that? When you're in a situation, will you step out? Will you put your neck out on the line? Do you do the things that would be heroic to other people? Remember on 9/11, there was the plane that was taken down and went down in the field? That's because there were two guys, and I believe it was on their cell phones, that they said, look, we don't know what's going to happen, but we got to stop this. and they stood up and they confronted the guys with the box cutters. They charged the cabin. And we don't know exactly what happened after that, but we do know that they took that plane down in a field rather than fly it into New York City. Those are heroes. Posthumous heroes, but they're heroes nonetheless. And second, emergency situations are often dangerous, just like that. To be heroic, we sometimes have to be willing to put our own life at risk to help others. Now, it doesn't always come to that, and that isn't always the defining moment of being a hero, risking your life. But risk and vulnerability, making yourself vulnerable, is the thing that makes heroes to other people. Third, there are emergencies that require immediate action. You can't stop and ponder the pros and the cons of intervening or consult with trusted friends or hop on your cell phone and go, there's this emergency situation. It's happening right around me, and I need to know if you think it's a good idea that I take my time and put my own neck on the line and take the risk to step in, and you get the picture. We have to act quickly sometimes. This is why you've got firefighters, paramedics, police that are all the heroes that put themselves, they run to the danger in order to help others. Sometimes you have to act quickly. And those are the three characteristics of emergencies that make effective responses to them very difficult. So heroism, that third point, involves risk and potential danger. Heroism requires knowledge and preparation. It can sometimes be spontaneous. A fourth characteristic of emergencies is that they differ widely from each other. Saving a drowning person requires a completely different set of skills compared to the act of saving a heart attack victim. Now, by the way, if you were in either of those situations where you needed to help save somebody who's drowning, or save somebody who's suffering a heart attack, or save somebody that's choking, say in a restaurant or a family gathering, are you prepared enough to be able to step in and do that? A choking victim needs help from someone trained to perform the Heimlich maneuver. A person who stops breathing needs CPR. And somebody who helps revive them needs CPR training. So countless times, heroes have reported that their training, their preparation, enabled them to save a life. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if you lack the skills to save someone, you render yourself useless in an emergency. Does that mean we all need to rush out and take CPR courses or learn how to swim and save a person who's drowning? Learn the Heimlich maneuver? That's probably the easiest one on the list. Do we have to learn how to deliver babies to help the woman who's having a baby in the back of the bus or the taxi cab? Those are things you can certainly do and add it to your own personal resume of things that you're trained in. But you don't necessarily have to go out and do that. But what if you're ever faced with that? The hero is the one who's prepared. Heroism isn't rewarded by society, not all the time. In fact, it involves great risks, potential dangers, a willingness to be deviant, to be freakish. And it takes good preparation. It's a wonder that anyone steps up to be a hero. Yet every day, people do choose to act heroically. And that's the good news. There may be more heroes than we think. They're just faded into the background right now until the moment comes where they're called upon. When I've asked people to name their heroes, just like I did for you at the beginning of this program, over half the heroes named are usually parents, teachers, coaches, firefighters, healthcare workers, law enforcement, and the military. All these people are our heroes. We don't always think of them as heroes, but they are. These are the unsung heroes of society. They're found in great abundance and they're all around us. These are people that rarely receive any kind of broad recognition or fame. They do their heroic work quietly behind the scenes, day in and day out. There are also people like the guy we mentioned earlier in this broadcast, Phil Zimbardo, the Heroic Imagination Project, and he trains every day people to become heroes. Matt Langdon, who we mentioned, at the Hero Construction Company, visits schools to transform children into heroes. There was recent research by one Elizabeth Heiner, and she suggests that kids who watched Langdon's presentations showed a significant increase in their levels of courage, even 30 days later. And do you know what? Do you know that sometimes there are kids who are what we would consider the bad eggs, who we would consider the bullies, that when they are confronted with the option to choose to be a hero, they change themselves? I know I had one kid in my youth group that I wouldn't call him a bully, but he was an ass. He was so hard to deal with. His parents made him come to youth group, and he was one of those guys that constantly being a problem. He never really beat anybody up, but he bullied people with his attitude, and it's the kind of guy he was. I thought, dude, many times, dude, you have got to get a handle on this. Well, it was about 5-6 years after I was a youth pastor, and I had moved on to a different state, and I was doing some other things. It was in advertising. I got a call from this kid out of the blue. He said, I looked up your number. I had to find you. You had to do a little digging, but I wanted you to know, I was really rough on you back in high school. He said, but I want you to know, he says, I went to Bible college and seminary, and I just graduated seminary, and I'm taking a role as a youth pastor. And he said, I wanted you to know that you inspired me to do that. Kids who are the kids that you might least expect it are the kids that are inspired by heroes. Do you think bullies don't have their own heroes in their own private little world? If you just encouraged them to be heroes, they would step up. We can equip future generations with the tools to become heroes. In fact, we can all become heroes right now, today, if we're prepared for the challenges mentioned and we're willing to do what it takes to help other people. That's all it takes to be a hero. Be prepared. Be freakish. I think most of you have that online already. You got that going for you. But can you try to become a hero? Or does it just happen? Like many positive outcomes in life, heroism is not something you can just choose. You can prep yourself for it, like I've mentioned. You can you can be freakish, you can be the standout. But our troubled world desperately needs more heroes. And this leads to the question of whether we can choose to become a hero, and how much fate, luck, circumstances, forces beyond our control just make heroism happen. It's an issue about heroism that's both psychological and it's philosophical. Can we receive heroism training and do what it takes to transform ourselves into heroes? Or is heroism something that's done to us? Way back in 1966, back when I was a 5-year-old kid, a highly underrated psychologist named Leslie Farber noted that most of the best psychological states that we strive for cannot be willed by us. We can't will those things into existence. These are things like happiness, wisdom, courage, resilience, even a good night's sleep. How many of you have those things that can just by force of will make yourself be happy, or wise, or courageous, or resilient, or rested? I can do fun activities, but I can't will happiness. I can go to bed at 11, but I can't will myself to sleep. So I would say that the same is true for transforming ourselves into heroes. We can do things to make heroic transformation more likely, such as, attend a hero roundtable conference, get involved in some of these hero-making things, events that are out there. We can participate in hero training or engage in mindful meditation. in much the same way that we can make sleep more likely by going to bed on time, trying to get a good sleeping habit. But like falling asleep, we can't will heroism to happen. A few years ago, there were Thai Navy SEALs who risked their lives to save a group of soccer boys who were trapped in a cave. Now, these Navy SEALs didn't become life-saving heroes until circumstances presented themselves that allowed for heroism to happen. Those SEALs had the training, and they were ready for sure, but most SEALs don't have a soccer team. And we should be thankful that most training goes to waste. Imagine the bloody carnage of a world where every trained hero uses every bit of their training, the things they prep for. So in short, there's some end states that we cannot will to happen. The circumstances come upon us. They have to happen as byproducts of various behaviors, experiences, and processes, some of which we can control and some we can't. Like what Captain Kirk said, risk. Risk is our business. So one of my favorite quotes was penned by George Patel. He said, "Mere words have something of a quicksand about them. Only experience is the rope that is thrown to us." Think about that for a second. We can't vow to become courageous and resilient. We have to go through tough times. We have to acquire courage and resilience. Experience is the rope that's thrown to us. And we have to grab that rope, even if maybe especially if, the experience is painful. Look at all the things that you have gone through. There are people sitting here in this chat room tonight, people who listen to this show who I know. You've gone through painful, tough times. You have baggage. You have garbage in your life. Have you ever stopped for a moment to think that all the rough things, the tough things, the bad things, the abuses, and all of these things that have happened to us are the things that have prepped us for becoming a hero, for being the lifeline to someone else? Instead of wallowing in, "Oh, poor is me, I had these problems in my youth," or things that happened to me, why don't you look at that and say, "I don't need the attention for that. I don't need people to throw me sympathy about my past and my past bad things that happened to me. I need to take those and morph those things into being the life rope for someone else." Have you ever thought of all your experiences combined are the things that have woken you up, that are making you aware? And if you live in the now with them, those are the things that allow you to be able to help others. Doesn't mean we don't have crap when we're going through them. It just means these are the things that make us who we are. And what are you going to do with that? Stay down all your life, or are you going to use that to make yourself a hero?
Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream, I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. These people come to see me in my bedroom, with faces dim and names I can't recall. Some woman with a golden ring, she comes to comb my hair. Then she dresses me and walks me down the hall. I can still put one foot before the other if someone points the way for me to go. Today the sun is shining and a crowd has gathered round. They put circles of red flowers on stones. Raise your flask, Aim your rifles high. I've had a dream I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. Jimmy Rankin stood behind me in the tunnel, spat on his bayonet and wiped it with his hand. He rocked from heel to heel, blew out his cheeks and whistled, while we waited for the signal to advance. Jimmy Rankin was only 20, and we thought him an old man. He said he'd fathered children by the score, by girls back home in Winnipeg and girls in Calais, and he bragged, by God, there'd be 100 more. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. Billy Whitefish from Kenora, jet black hair and eyes like coal. We all called him Chief behind his back. He never smiled or laughed or joked or spoke that much at all. He just sat and smoked while we waited to attack. They poured shells over our heads into the hillside. In 30 yards our kitten boots were full of mud. But as we made the ridge, Jimmy went down on both knees, and he coughed into his sleeve, and there was blood. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. The last sound I ever heard was an explosion, and bodies flew like apples thrown by boys at play. When I could see again, I was alone. Jimmy wasn't there, and a crater marked the hillside where he'd lain. Billy Whitefish from Kenora wound up in a German trench where he captured their machine gun all alone. And he held them off until his ammunition was all spent. Then they swarmed around and they hacked him to the bone. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. Now every day I still remember what I told them. My two friends who that day from this earth were torn, and the craters and the trenches where they died now bear the names of the cities and the towns where they were born. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg.